Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar for creating drawings from compressed models in Autodesk Inventor. Thanks for joining us. My name is Brian Jones, and I am a sales engineer here at Codeware. Two of our mechanical engineers, Amber Lindner and Devin Bly, are here as well, acting as co-organizer and co-presenter respectively. Now, if you joined us yesterday, then you probably have an understanding of how the Codeware interface can reduce the time it takes to generate your detailed drawings. In similar fashion, today's webinar will focus on how to leverage that power with Autodesk Inventor. Sometime following the presentation, this webinar will be posted online at www.codeware.com/webinars. There you will also find an archive of prior webinars and Q&As. As with all open discussions, please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation by typing into the webinar control panel located on the right of your screen. We will try our best to answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A session, but for those questions that we can't get to within our time constraint, we will publicly post the answers to online at a later date. At this time, I'd like to bring your attention to the handouts section of the webinar control panel. Available there is a Codeware Cloud brochure, a compressed brochure, a Codeware Support Center brochure, and a white paper written by our very own Matt Hyland entitled Solid Modeling is More Than a Pretty Picture, 3 Reasons Process Industries Should Use It. Since you've all decided to attend today's webinar, I'll guess that you might be aware of the benefits of incorporating solid modeling into your business practices. But if you still need some convincing, this paper is a great place to start. Now let's get started. Here's our engineering manager and your presenter, Matt Hyland.
Thank you for that introduction, Brian, and welcome everybody to our third part of our 4-part series of our webinars. Like I said, Brian said, for those of you who joined us yesterday, I was showcasing SolidWorks, and today I'm going to be showcasing Inventor. So for those of you that aren't using either one and you're kind of curious to see what the differences are, this is going to be a great place to start. So what are some of the topics I'm going to be going over today? Well, I'm going to give you a coder interface overview and a demonstration of the import so you can see exactly how long does this take to bring into Inventor. I'm also going to show you the vessel and exchanger properties, or what they call I properties, as well as the assembly representations and how this can benefit you once I move into the drawing, so when I can take that 3D model and put it into a 2D drawing. Finally, I'm going to go over some of the drawing templates, sketch symbols, and then some of the tables and working with the representations. So with that, let's go ahead and get into this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Compress, and this is the vessel that I'm going to use today. It's just a simple vessel, but what we need to do is export this from Compress. So in order to do that, you simply come up to the top here, and there's a 3D button with an arrow underneath, and this is our solid model export option. Now what it'll do is ask you where you want to save the file, and I'm just going to save it in this directory here. Now before I click save, one thing I want to bring your attention to are there is other options for exporting the file. So under the file type, we can also export ACES files, Granite, IGES, as well as STEP. Now these are what I call neutral file formats. They're really a dumb solid model. It's a representation. It doesn't contain any of the information, material properties, sketches, features, things like that. So to get the native Inventor file, you'll want to export the Codeware XML 3D file. And this is the file that our Codeware interface is going to read. So you simply click save. Now let's replace this file. And then it'll tell you that it's been exported successfully. Once that happens, like so, I can click OK, and the model has now been transferred outside of Compress. So what I can then do is go pull up Autodesk Inventor, and I'm using Autodesk Inventor 2016 here. This also works with 2015. Now the coder interface itself is included with your licensing of Compress. So if you're a current user of Compress, you already have access to the coder interface. You can actually go to our support center and download it as well. Now when you install it in Inventor, it'll actually install as a tab up here on the ribbon icon. And there's a couple of options here. We can go ahead and import the model. We can also look at the options dialog and our help menu where you can submit support requests to us, things like that. But let's quickly go through the options so you know what's available to you. Now for those of you that use Compress regularly, we set this up very similar to our set mode options. But for those of you that are new, what we have here, we have different pages available, and then the content will be in the center here. So on the general page, one of the first things I'll have you guys do would be to set up the default import file folder, as well as the default model save folder. Now, these can be set up. Sometimes the IT departments want everything saved on a network drive, things like that. All this is that when we bring the file in, we just need to save it initially, and that's what these path locations are for. We also have options for checking for automatic updates and the frequency you want to check them, things like that. Now, in terms of the model detail itself, we introduced a precision option here in Build 7600. And what this allows us to do is control the precision of the decimals that are coming over. So for example, any pressure unit, we may want to just round it to a whole number. So you can just from the pull down menu here, select none. Likewise, you can do the same thing with temperature. I'll do the same thing with weight and the capacity. But for the length, for example, maybe I want to go with the 4 decimal places, 1/16 of an inch is 0.0625. I want to make sure that's not rounded on the drawing as well. So you can customize this to what you want. Once you're happy with it, click apply, and the settings will now be changed. Now the next option I want to go through is what we call the feature recognition, and I'm going to touch into this a little bit more when the model comes in to show you what a feature-based model is. Really what this is it gives you all of the characteristics used to build the part. So for example, a cylinder or a nozzle, we're obviously going to make 2 cylinders, make them concentric, and then we're going to extrude it. And that's what the Codeware interface is going to do for you. Now, why is this a benefit? Well, it allows you to open up these parts and edit them afterwards as well. So you do have the option of turning them on or off. It's up to you that way. Then finally, we have our configurations, or in Autodesk Inventor, they call them representations. And what a representation is really a grouping of components that we want to put together. So for example, there's a listing here. We can group all the flanges together, the nozzles, the attachments, supports, and heads. And this is going to become very evident when I start filling out things like our nozzle cut list, our nozzle schedule, things like that. So again, I would highly encourage everybody just leave them on, but you can turn them off if you want. So I'll click OK here, and let's get the model imported. So what I'm going to do is click Import Model right here in the top left, and I'll just need to go and locate my file right here where I exported it, click on it, click Open, and then I'm going to click Import. Now when I do this, you're actually going to see the model get generated in the background for you. So essentially we're replacing a lot of the manual labor of going into creating sketches, extruding, putting the parts together, things like that. So you can keep an eye on what's going on here. Now, one thing that I want to do right now is actually run a quick polling question since I have some of you while this is running. And one of the things that I'd like to know is, are you currently using the Codeware interface? So I'm going to go ahead and launch this, and I'll give you 30 seconds to answer it. All right, I'll go ahead and close that. I'm going to share the results with you. So 33% of you are using it, that's great. 57% of you are not, and 10% of you are currently evaluating it. So this is a really good webinar for you to sit in so I can show you why you may want to start looking at moving over to these 3D modeling programs. And one question I get a lot is, what is the difference between Autodesk Inventor and AutoCAD? Many of you are still using AutoCAD to get a lot of your drawings out, things like that. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with it, but AutoCAD is sketch-based where you have to draw the lines and put the drawing together that way, whereas these 3D modeling programs are parametric-based. So the drawings are going to be read from the solid model, and I'm going to show you this, but as you update the model, your drawings will also get updated automatically. And this actually helps a lot with the turnaround as well when you get revisions back. You don't need to go update the drawings because the dimensions will be automatically updated if you have to make adjustments to the model, things like that. So that's one of the big differences there. So while it's still coming in, and I have you guys, one thing I want to know for the people that are using Inventor is, how are you using this? So just another quick polling question. And what I'm curious to know is, are you guys using it primarily for drawings? Are you using it for further analysis such as FEA or CFD? For those of you that don't know, they do have simulation options available with these packages. So for heat exchanger manufacturers, you may be able to run a CFD. We have a couple of clients that use it for plant layout. They bring the models in and they take them out through the BIM exchange, and they can load them right into AutoCAD Plant 3D. And then if you're using it for something else as well. And one of the nice things about the plant layout is that, for the fabricators, you can always offer this file to your clients that might be an owner operator, so they have it for themselves. All right, so I'll go ahead and close this. And again, I'll share this with you guys. So 75% of you are using it for drawing, so that's great. It's a very powerful tool to use for your drawings as well. I'll go ahead and hide this. So the model is almost done. It's just past the halfway point here. But again, I wanted to show you how much time we're saving bringing this in. And when the model comes in, I'll show you a little bit more. But in Inventor, what it does, it comes in as what we call an assembly. And then an assembly is a collection of parts. So when we create a component in Compress, that is a part. And when that gets created in Inventor, we then put them back together and you get a top-level assembly. And there's also going to be properties associated with each of these parts or properties. And you can actually see it finishing up right here. Now these properties can take a very long time to type in. So making a simple cylinder doesn't take that long by hand, but when you start confining the component, or you start having to manually type in the properties, this is going to save you a lot of time. And we figured out it's roughly between 30 to 45 minutes per component. And I'm going to show you where these properties are as well, and then where you can use them. And it's just finishing up. And I got one more question for you guys, and I'm really curious to know how long have you guys been using Inventor? Whether you've been relatively new to it, if you've been less than a year, 1 to 3, or 5+. And this helps me over here for future webinars. If you guys are experienced Inventor users, I can spend some more time on the higher level details of it as well. All right, I'll go ahead and close it. And I'm going to share it with you. So 40% of you are less than a year, 28% of you 1 to 3, and 32% of you are 5+ years. So we have a nice mixture here as well. So I'll go ahead and hide this. And our model is now done. So when it comes in, it'll say the model has been imported successfully. We can just click close. And here's our native Autodesk Inventor file. So every operation from here on out is actually an Inventor functionality. So as I said, what this is actually an assembly file. Over here on the left is our part tree. So all the componentry that was named in Compress has been brought over. So for example, the cylinders, the elbows, the saddles, all of that information has been brought over. And you can actually open up the parts themselves. So if you want to open up the cylinder, you can actually open up the individual part. You can then see the features, and this is what I talked about, a feature-enabled model, what we did to create this. So this is the sketch to use to make the cylinder, the extrusion feature, and then as well as the sketches used to create the nozzle holes. And all of these can be edited and tweaked later on if you need to, if you have specific shop practices that you need to do. I know you can convert this to sheet metal and take this out onto a burn table to cut the holes as well, which is very handy when you get those very large hillside nozzles and you get those teardrop shapes as well. So that's going to be available to you as well, but more importantly are the properties. Now I try to stress this a lot because they're so valuable. I see hundreds of drawings come across my desk every year, and I'm noticing a trend where a lot of the information is going to be tabulated in tables. So if you right click on any of these components or the assembly itself up here, you can select this option here that's called iProperties. And when the iProperties dialog comes up, and you can click on the Custom tab right here. These are all the properties that we brought over. So here's the name that we've assigned it, and then the value. So all the calculated values that we've determined in Compress, whether it be the MDMT, the required thickness, the MAWP, the hydrostatic test pressure, the design code edition, anything like that, that's now been transferred over to this model. Now, why is this useful? Well, I can then move all this information over to a drawing very, very quickly. So every part is going to have its own set of properties, and then every assembly or subassembly will have their own set as well. Now, before I get into the drawing itself, one other thing I want to touch on are what we call representations. Now, I said before, representation, it's just over here on the left, is a collection of parts that we want to see lumped together. So for example, I can lump all the nozzles together. I can then lump, for example, the supports together, so the saddles. Again, why is this useful? When I go to a drawing, I can specifically call out these representations in tables that way as well. And for fun, for those of you that are new to the solid modeling world, some of the other cool things that you can do with it, take a section view. Up here on the View tab, you can actually just take a section view very easily, take a half section, you just select the plane that we want to use, click OK. There's a section view. So if you want to link in any of your part libraries, like you've got internals or anything that you want to put inside here, but you want to make sure it's fitting properly, you can take a simple section view, have a look inside. You can make sure all the clearances are set properly, things like that. So that's just one little thing that is kind of neat to show with the solid modeling. All right, but why are we all here? We want to take a look at the drawing. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I want to make a drawing from this assembly, what I'm going to do is come up here to the top left and select New. And I'm going to set up a drawing template. Now we've already gone ahead and set up some templates for you. They're installed here. And if you're curious where these are on the system, or you've got your own templates that you want to put in here, this file location right here is where you would go and drop your templates into. So I'm just going to take a D-size sheet and click Create right here. And this will open up my drawing sheet. So the Codeware template, what we did is we installed our design data table for you, as well as our nameplate. And I'm going to show you how to edit this stuff as well, which you can actually make your own tables, things like that. But one of the things when you're dealing with drawings in Inventor is everything is read off that model, all the properties, things like that. So we need to get a view in here. So up here, just select under the place view, select base, and you can put a view in. I'm just going to put a simple isometric view in for the time being and just drag it over here. And I'm going to right click and click OK. It's like pushing enter on your keyboard. But note, when I come back into our design data, for example, our nameplate, I've now filled out some of it. All of these values have actually been brought over from compressed to the solid model, now to a drawing. So this is going to ensure drafting accuracy so nobody is retyping in this information. And again, these are eye properties that I showed you. So if you want to start putting in other information in here, you can as well. One question we get a lot is, can I edit these design tables or these sketch symbols that they call them in Autodesk Inventor? And the answer is yes, you can. If you simply highlight on the table and right click on it, you can select the option here that's called Edit Definition. Select this and it'll actually open up the sketch symbol right here. So for example, if you want to put your company logo in here, well, what you could do is just simply come up to the insert option here and select image. Now Inventor will ask you where you want to place the image. That's what this little cursor is. So I'll just select right here in the middle. And then I'll ask you for your JPEG or your file format. I'll just take my logo, my Codeware logo, and click open. And there it is. And I can just drag it. I can resize it, things like that. And then my company logo is now available here. And the other thing you can do, you can rearrange any of these properties. So if you want to actually fill out the information for the year built, you can actually just put a text in here with those open brackets right there and type in the I property from the assembly, and that information will come over all the time. So that's why you see these text right here. That's actually linking to our I properties. Once you're done and you're happy with everything, simply click on the Finish Sketch option, and I'll say, yeah, I want to save it. And as you can see, my nameplate has now been updated. So again, you can also go in and you can make your own sketch symbols, tables, things like that. And I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. But as mentioning before, a lot of the drawings we're seeing coming across our desk contain a lot of tables with data. So how do we get that onto the drawing? Well, what we can do is under the Annotate tab right here, we can put a parts list in. I'm going to do a nozzle schedule first. So I'll select my parts list. And I need to select my document. Now either you can highlight the sketch here or you can drag it from the drop-down menu. I'll go ahead and just select the sketch so it knows it's going to look at all the properties on this model. And the only other thing I need to do is under the BOM view, I'm going to select parts only and I'm going to click OK. And I'll click OK to this. And then it will ask me to drag and drop it. Now before we drag and drop it, one thing we need to do is come up here to the Format tab. And under this pull-down menu, you'll see a bunch of Codeware tables. So I've put things in like bend schedules. So for some of our clients that are building YouTubes, we can get you a bend schedule as well. We've got a bill of material, a flange table, gasket and bolting information, our cut list, our nozzle schedule, and our shell table. So I'll select my nozzle schedule, and I'm just going to drag and drop this here, like so. And there's my nozzle schedule. So we've done things like our drawing mark, identifier, material, things like that. All this information, though, is completely customizable. So if you want to move any of these columns around, you can. Now, a good question you may notice is, you put a nozzle schedule on here. Why are all of my cylinders showing up? That's a very good question. What we need to do is call out the representation that I was showing you before. So remember when I showed you that representation for the nozzles? Well, that's what we want to call out. So what I'm going to do is right-click on the table and select Edit Parts List right here. And up here, what I'm going to do is come up to my filter settings, which is this button right here. And I'm going to select a filter. We're going to select an assembly view representation. And then any of those representations that we develop for you, you can have called out in these tables. So I'll select nozzles, click OK, and now only my nozzles are being shown, and I can click OK again. And then obviously you can format the table a little bit. If you want everything on a line, drag and drop it, but there's a nozzle schedule in here for you. One other option you can do is possibly doing auto ballooning with this. So for example, if you want to put an item number and auto balloon the vessel, one thing you can do is right click on your view sketch right here, and you're going to select the option Apply Design View. What this allows us to do is then go into the representations and select, I want to just see the nozzles. Click OK, and the nozzle will just be shown. What this then allows me to do is only auto balloon the nozzles versus doing everything else. So if you want a drawing sheet just for that, we can just auto balloon the nozzles. So up here under the table option, there's an option for auto balloon. We're going to select it. So the first thing we'll need to do is work our way through this. So the first thing you need to do is select the view set. So I want to select this view, and then I'm going to put it around, but then we need to highlight all of the nozzles that we want to have auto balloon. So I just usually drag and drop a box around it, and they've all turned blue, so that means I've selected it. And then I just select placement right here. As you can see, it'll ask me where do I want to drag and drop the balloons. Just click on the screen, click OK, and now the auto ballooning has been done just for the nozzles. But I don't want to just see a sketch of the nozzles. I want to see the whole vessel. No problem. Simply go back, right click on it, select Apply Design View, and then go back to your master view and click OK. And there's the vessel. So then the only thing else we have to do here is link that item number to this nozzle schedule. So again, simply right click on it, select Edit Parts List, but instead of going to that filter settings I showed you, what you're going to do is click on the column chooser option right here. And then under the all properties, you just come down here till you find item number and then add it on the list, and then you can move it up or wherever you want. Click OK, and there's your item number linked with the nozzles as well. So that's available for you as well. And again, you can actually save this table with the item number already there. So when you auto balloon it, it fills out automatically. So let's just recap what I did. Let's put another table in, but let's put the nozzle cut list. So if it's going out to a fab shop, how long do we need to cut the nozzles? So again, select my drawing view, go to my parts list, click OK. I'm going to come up here to my format and I'm going to select nozzle cut list. And I'm just going to drag and drop it. Again, from here, all I need to do is right click on it and select Edit Parts List. I'm going to go to my filter settings, select Assembly View Representation, and then select Nozzles. Click OK. And since I'm here, I want to link it to the auto ballooning. Simply go to my column chooser, come down here to my properties, select Item, move it over, move it up, and click OK. And as you can see, there's my nozzle cut list that's available for the shop. Now the other thing you can do, we've got tables for slip-on flanges. So if you want to know, if you want to send a table out with the WPS number or your AID, your inner and outer fillet, you can do that. We can even put in some sketch symbols to represent those as well. And I'm going to touch on that in a few minutes. So what we can do, and then once we get all this information on here, so you can see in a relatively short amount of time, I was able to put a nozzle schedule on, a nozzle cut list, fill up my use stamp information, as well as my design data. But if you want to get some basic dimensioning in here, what you can do is just simply open up another sheet. So I come up to the File menu, select New. Again, you come select a different sheet size or the same one, click Create, and we can start actually putting views on here to do dimensioning. So again, what I'll do is I'll select my base view, and I'll put my right view here, and just right click and click OK, and I'll just drag it in here. And you can rescale these as well. What's nice about using these programs is that they are to scale drawings. So to do any of the custom stuff, which we seem to be running into more and more these days, it's very easy to do that. So what you can do is under the Annotate tab, you can start putting dimensions on. Perhaps I want to put a center line on the vessel. Very, very easily done here. Like so. I can then start dimensioning to it. So if you want to know the saddle height, like so, we can dimension any type of dimensioning we want here as well. Like so. The other thing we can do here, you can also take breakout views. So under the place views, there's options for auxiliary views, section views, detailed views. So for example, if I want to take a detail view, you just simply click where you want it, highlight around the section, and you can simply move it over here as well. Like that. So if you want to break out any of the nozzles, maybe you want to do some well detailing, things like that, you can do it here as well. So that's how we can do some very basic dimensioning using Autodesk Inventor, which has been very, very handy as well. Now, the other thing that I see a lot of that's come around drawings is typically with the welds, they'll use what I call blocks, or Autodesk Inventor calls it sketch symbols. So for those of you that have used to use our drafter program, those detailed nozzle configurations, people will actually set those up as well. And in Autodesk Inventor, what you can do is set it up as a sketch symbol. So up here under the Manage tab, there's an option here for defining a symbol. So you click on it, and it's going to open up a sketch. And I'm going to do this very quickly, but I'm just going to do a very quick nozzle configuration. So I'll just make two rectangles here, like so. You can actually do some basic dimensioning here, make it look more in line. And then what you can do is also put your fillet weld in here. Like so. And that could be something that you want to call out on a drawing. So the majority of nozzles would actually have this type of configuration with your full penetration weld. You could put the sizes on there, things like that. And then when you click Finish Sketch, you just simply name it to what you want. So for example, if you want to go through the UW16 sketches in the code book, you could actually set up all of the nozzle configurations that way as well. And these are things that we're constantly working on over here. So in the future, we're going to have a lot of these available for you as well. But if you do go ahead and set them up, what you can do is just over here under our sketch symbols, you can actually select Insert, and you can start calling them out and putting them on your drawings as well. So if you know, okay, this is our shop standard, we can do that. You can also associate text there, some dimensioning lines, things like that. So that's a little trick for people that are, eager to get their shop set up with Autodesk Inventor, things like that. Okay, so just a review of what I've gone over with you. I showed you an import, how to import the model into Inventor so you can get the solid model that way. I've also gone over the eye properties that you can link into. I've also gone over your representations as well, and then how to pull it into a drawing and create our tables, how to auto balloon it, how to edit our existing blocks or sketch symbols that we've provided to you as well, and some tips and tricks on the sketch symbols as well. One other question that comes up a lot are ERP systems. Is there a way to link our ERP system in with this. Currently, it's something we're looking into, but what I would encourage you to do, there are some companies out there that actually specialize in this. One that comes to mind is a company called Genius Solutions. They're actually located up in Canada. I would encourage you to reach out to them. They may be able to help you. I believe another one is a company called Eclipse. So they may have some solutions for you or things that they can help you get your system up and running that way as well. So at this point, guys, I want to start taking some questions from the audience that have come in. So Amber, if there's any questions that came in, I'll be happy to go over them right now.
Yes, we've had a few questions come in. Is there a connection or a link between the Inventor model and the compress model?
Oh, good question. Currently, no. Currently it's a one-directional export. So in the event that the drafters have to move something or it gets moved, let's take a vertical tower, for example, and you have to move the nozzle elevation. I would highly recommend you check with the engineer designer and go back to compress because that could fundamentally change the code calculations as well. So currently it's a one-directional link. But what you can do is make the change in compress and very easily re-export the model as well, and it should get updated for you.
Why are internal components such as packed beds and trays not imported into Inventor with the Codeware interface?
Right, very good question. So in compress, we consider the packed bait, we look at it from a mechanical design point, so we need to know the lump mass. They're not exactly detailed out. As many of you know, there's hundreds and variations of different internals or packed beds that you can go with. So what I would encourage you to do is when the model comes in, put in the actual internal that you're using. For example, if it's a bubble tray from Coke Glitch, you should be able to get solid models from their sales reps and say, I need this for my model, and actually model their actual bubble tray that way as well.
Okay, currently the Codeware interface models barrel flanged forgings and long weld neck flanges as two separate parts. Why are these forgings not modeled as a single part? Also, does compress intend to model these as single parts?
The answer to that is yes. That's something we're aware of over here, and we will be addressing. So it is something we're going to be, it's actually on our development list, and we'll be looking at in a future release. I'll see what we can do even for this year since it came up, but it is something I'm aware of. So I will be looking at modeling it as a single component.
Have the weld sizes, such as nozzle welds, been added in iProperties?
Yes, they have. Actually, if you show up, I believe it's in here, in our nozzle, we're actually going to send out the weld values for you. So for example, your fillet welds, the lower fillet weld 843, now obviously there isn't one on here, but those weld values are actually listed out in the properties here. So again, if you want to fill out a weld table for all of this, you can do that, and you can actually just link to these properties as well.
Is the Codeware interface compatible with Inventor 2014?
How we actually support the interface is we always support the latest two versions of Inventor. So currently, Inventor 2016 and 2015 are officially supported that way. So no, 2014 is not officially supported.
Okay, we have one last question for this session. How can I customize the default width of the columns in the nozzle schedule?
Let me pull that up.
Here, Matt, I can go ahead and take that if you'd like.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I'll defer this to Devin. So Devin, go ahead and fill this one.
All right, so for the tables provided with the Codeware interface, they can be adjusted by going up to the Manage tab. And if we go to Styles Editor, it might take a moment for that to open. And the Style Editor is a place where we can edit all of these templates. So you'll see under Parts List we have the different Codeware templates provided. If you go towards the bottom right where it says Default Column Settings, that's where you can set your different widths. And from here you can actually export these tables as well.
All right, thank you, Devin. Okay, so Amber, was that it for the questions that were coming up?
Yes, that's all for this session.
All right, guys. Well, that's what I wanted to show everybody today. What I would encourage you to do, if you're not already using Inventor or you've got some more questions, please feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to go through what's coming, what we're working on, or even hear suggestions from you, what you'd like to see in the model as well. And then I encourage you guys to view our next demonstration, which is going to be next month. I'm going to be showcasing our Inspect program, which is our fitness for service software. So I think Brian will talk about that a little bit as well. But I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. And Brian, I will turn it back to you.
All right, thank you again for attending this webinar with us. If you submitted a question that we didn't get to, please go to www.codeware.com/webinars for answers to all of the questions we received today. You will receive an email shortly making you aware when those Q&A questions will be posted. The next and final webinar in this 4-part series will be all about Inspect. So if you've been wondering what those API menus and compress are for, you'll want to log in for this one. And you can register online at codeware.com/webinars. And if you have any further questions or comments, please feel free to submit them via our online support center. Email them to support@codeware.com or give us a call at 941-927-2670. We'll see you next time.